Okay. Um, this is training session 2 for TAs on Tuesday, the 5th of June. So, uh, Julian and DJ, could you update Yilin on what we did this morning? What the most interesting points that you got out of this morning's session? Why don't you just take turns making points? Julian, what was first point that struck you as useful about this morning?
That a lot of thought has gone into the mission statement and the elevator pitch and all that kind of very the first things people hear about when they hear about build it yourself, and that a lot of feedback's being taken for that.
Okay, great. A lot of thought has gone into our business goals and structuring our program so it makes so it's logical.
Right.
DJ, what was there? What was your takeaway from this morning?
I really like the really detailed explanation of all the paperwork because I was kind of confused because there are a lot. But I think the Dropbox thing is really helpful and the schedule.
Okay, good. The administration,
Yeah.
all of the, yeah, great. Okay, what did you, what can we do better? Anything that we can do to make our teaching, our training programs more fun, more efficient, and shorter?
Well, I mean, at least for me, I'm still not positive what it is I have to fill out specifically as a webcaster and what I don't have to.
Okay. Hopefully we're gonna do that this session. Talk about all the forms that need to be filled out. Is that right, Brent?
Yeah, we discussed it. Basically, I think what Julian's saying is I mentioned I'd follow up with him because I wasn't sure if he needs to get fingerprinted.
Right.
My sense of the law says he doesn't. I just don't know if we need to double check with the schools before we make a judgment call.
Yeah. In your case, Julian, it's much different because you're going to be working remotely. So
you might have to do nothing.
Well, you'll have to do paycheck in order to get paid, and you'll have to do our HR manual. But
yeah, the company stuff, but not the school stuff, might be the case.
There we go. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, but I don't want to promise that until we double check everything.
No, I understand. As for the W-4 paychecks kind of thing, how do I get that to you guys?
Email it to us is fine.
Okay.
You need to get the original forms. Sisha and Brent will make sure everyone has all of the paycheck forms you'll need to fill out, direct deposit. So you'll get that in an email and just send it back to us via email is fine.
All right, sounds good.
Fill it out, sign it, and then scan it and send it back as a JPEG or a PDF is fine.
And same thing for the HR manual type stuff, or?
The HR manual is a 48-page document. You just need to sign one page, and we're good.
Okay. Do I email the signed page to you then?
Yeah. I'm not sure, Brent, how paycheck dictates.
I believe that's the case. It looks like when I looked at the basically our Paychex is our company that helps us handle payroll and some of the administration, basically outsource. And they have a page builder, not page builder, a manual builder. So we just have to tweak the policies, and they make sure everything's compliant for us. At the end of it, I looked at the preview because we're very close to finalizing the latest version of it. It looks like it just has a sign and date kind of thing at the bottom of it, and I'm pretty confident that you just have to do that and email it. I think all the forms, just fill them out and email them, and you should be in good shape.
Right. It's just one page you have to sign and send back to us that states you've read the whole thing. There is a new proprietary agreement that as part of that HR manual. I know Julian, we went through that once, and we used the HubSpot as opposed to the Apple. And I think some of that has changed a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes. So basically, what we did, and you probably want to read it, because I know you were concerned with the Apple one. We took the HubSpot one because John explained to me the conversation that you and him had, and that you were more comfortable with the HubSpot one for good reasons. So the only difference we did was the HR manual is for employees, not contractors, and the original contract was written for contractors. So we changed the language to apply to employees. So instead of saying during your contract, we say during your employment. We deleted a bunch of paragraphs that only made sense to contractors. So it's mostly we removed stuff and we changed the language to apply to employees. I think the overall message and protections between the employee and the company is this. I would hope it's the exact same as the original one you signed. And it would be good to actually get your feedback on that when we send it out. If you have any issues with it, I have no problem looking at Verizon if it's something that wasn't consistent with the original.
Sure. Whenever you send it, I'll take a look at it.
All right, I'll send you a copy even before we send out the HR manual, just so you can give me your feedback and we can make sure you're comfortable with it.
Sounds good.
Great. Okay. This session is going to be dedicated to following up on administration and then introducing you to creating a lab book, much like we ask every one of our summer campers to create a PowerPoint lab book where they document the tricks they learned and the design of their project. Let's just follow this agenda. Would anyone like to read an elevator pitch if you've had a chance to draft one? You saw mine in the session this morning. Sisha or Brent, do you like to start? How would you describe the Build It Yourself mission to your best friend or or a potential investor? Brent or Sisha, you want to take a first cut?
Okay. Yep. I just revised my elevator pitch. Okay. So my elevator pitch is that BIY provides projects involving multidisciplines like arts, music, engineering, programming, language learning. And we created an immersive experience where children can practice their problem-solving ability based on our storyboards. Technology, moral concept, aesthetic appreciation will be shown in your final work by playing with our global module laboratory. We also have gallery where you can show off your work or be inspired by others' work.
Cool. Okay. What do you guys like about Sisha's elevator pitch, and what do you think could be better? Any critique to help Sisha fine-tune her elevator pitch? Well, let me take a first cut. I think it sounds very professional and credible, Sisha. I think it's a bit long, and I always like to use really simple vocabulary. I'm told that the New York Times, supposedly the most sophisticated newspaper in the world, the vocabulary that they use is targeted at vocabulary that a sixth grader would have. So they tend not to use fancy words. They tend to use really, really simple words. That's the New York Times.
Okay.
So that would be my comment. I think it's very credible, in part because your vocabulary is good, but I think it's also a bit long, in part because your vocabulary, might be a little simpler. So those are sort of contradictory. You have to find the balance between the two.
Thanks.
Okay. Brent? Do you have a elevator pitch that you use when you talk about Build It Yourself?
I do. I usually just kind of wing it, like you say, kind of off the top of the head. I took the time to write two of them.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen or?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see. One is a really long sentence. The other one is a short version because they both have value depending on the context. And the reason why I think it's good the elevator pitch is off the top of your head is sometimes people look like they're in a hurry. If you have a parent who looks like they're trying to leave, one sentence that's small is dramatically better. Whereas if you have someone who's been engaging in conversation with you for like 10 minutes about their kid and their project, you might be able to drop 3 sentences in with no problem. So I think it's almost like you've got to feel the flow of the situation, just like when you're teaching a kid.
Well put, Brent.
So the first one, I wouldn't remember if I tried unless I studied it for a few hours. Build It Yourself's mission is to inspire young builders ages 8 to 14 around the world through our global webcast laboratory, where industry professionals and college students lead game-like art and engineering project-based workshops using our proprietary library, and this is because I can't pronounce too many syllables. It's embarrassing to share my screen, of functional building blocks that allow members to build their portfolio on our social media platform, Dimension Universe, to show off their projects to their friends, family, and schools. The second one is much smaller. Build It Yourself inspires kids through our global webcast laboratory, where our workshop leaders teach kids 8 to 14 art and engineering projects based on research from the MIT Media Lab. This one is shorter. I dropped in an MIT well, Julian, you go to MIT, right?
I do.
You know that reputation is worth a lot of money. So to say that to a parent, it gets immediate credibility. And this one, I think it was a long enough paragraph sentence without trying to fit that in. In short, when you say MIT, your kids are being taught by the people that you want them to be like, and they're going to work with kids around the world. I think parents get excited.
Great, Brent. Any thoughts? Brent, you can leave that up there just
sure.
While we critique it. Generally, I really like when someone presents something that kids as well as our own team, that we give them feedback. First of all, what do we like about their solution? And secondly, what do we think could be better?
And you guys can draw on my screen. WebEx has a function called annotate. So I'm going to pretend I knew exactly how to pronounce that, and I'm going to pretend that's not there. But if you guys go to the top of the screen, in that little box that pops down, there's a pen icon, and if you click on that, you can cross off, write notes, type on my screen, whatever helps you annotate it, and express what you think.
Okay. Just for the benefit of you, Yellen, who missed the first session, this elevator pitch is really important in my mind because it will help developers make good decisions. If you understand what the big picture is, it will help teachers teach better. If you understand, the big mission that Build It Yourself has, and it will help us sell Build It Yourself to investors and distribution partners better if we have a clear, concise, compelling elevator pitch. Okay, anyone want to help Brent? What do you really like about it, and what could be better? I'll take a first cut if no one wants to chime in. In general, I feel like less is more. So I really warm up to your second sentence. The first one is a really long sentence. It sounds like a legal document. I would split it up into 3 or 4 sentences, Brent. I think you make very good points in the first one, important points, but I think each point should be a sentence. And then when you're giving your elevator pitch, you can focus in on just the points that you think your listener wants to hear. Very often before I give an elevator pitch, I'll ask who I'm talking with, what their interests are, and then I'll try to tailor my elevator pitch to what they tell me they're interested in, rather than just, spit out something that may or may not be relevant to them. So if you can make your elevator pitch, if you can modify your elevator pitch so that it meets the specific interests of a group of listeners, a listener or a group of listeners, that often can be more effective.
I also think this exercise is important because it gets your brain stimulated and begins to start remembering this information in this context. But like what John just said this is harder, I think, than actually giving your pitch, because usually you're already in conversation and you have some context. So if this feels a little forced, just know that it will feel like, I would say, at least twice as natural as this, if not better, because you'll know what they're thinking before you go to say something.
Great. Okay. Any other thoughts on Brent's elevator pitches?
I like the MIT.
I'm sorry, Julian?
I like the MIT call out. That was good.
MIT and Cornell, right?
It's good for your ego, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, the more we can build off of others' philosophies and success, like when we start showing you our presentations, our 5 problem-solving tricks, they don't reinvent the wheel. And a lot of these places that you can reference, like MIT specifically in context to build it yourself, they spent lots of money and lots of time to get to where they are now, a lot of dedication and ongoing work to keep that reputation. If we can say anything about using something they created, or that we worked with them on something, or our TAs, some of them are from MIT, if we say, college students teach your kids, many of them from Ivy League schools, including MIT, that would make any parent jump for joy, I think.
Great. Okay. All right. Unless anyone else wants to chime in or share an elevator pitch that they're thinking about, we'll move on. Okay. So Yilin, the assignment this morning was to write an elevator pitch, and so we may start many of our meetings with elevator pitches that each of you have created. Okay, sharing my screen again, and Sisha, I hope you can help me, and Brent, help me on this. Just a few administrative comments. We're on point 2 now.
We accidentally covered a few of these,
okay.
But I think it's okay to run through them again quickly.
Okay, great. So we're gonna pay for 10 hours of training. These webcasts are designed to be 10 hours of webcasts. We expect that some of our workshop leaders will not need any time outside of this, except for filling out forms. But others may need quite a bit more time to learn our system. So you may spend another 10 hours or so in the training, and we hope that you'll consider those hours as hours well spent in order to maximize your experience at Build It Yourself. Okay. Over the summer, you're going to be we expect you to log roughly 30 to 35 hours of actual teaching or development time, excluding learning time. We don't we have a policy of not paying for learning time. Let me stop at A, B, and C. Any feedback on this policy of compensating for training and learning time? Do you think that that's fair, or would you propose something else? We want to try to build our culture so that it reflects, what you guys are telling us. Are A, B, and C fair and logical?
It seems fine. I just have a question related to the whole training thing.
Sure.
The weekly like meetings on Sunday that we have with Steve
Yep.
and the other IU team, does that count as training? Is that its own thing? Is it not paid for?
That. Good question. I'm going to leave it to. I think we should leave it to the good judgment of our team. What is learning time, and what is actual development time? The way I would look at it is that if you build code that we actually use, or is part leads to code that we're actually going to use, then that we should compensate you for that. If you're doing exercises to learn how to write that code, then you can log it on your timesheet, but I would put $0 per hour for learning. So it's useful for us to know how much time it takes you to learn, but I wouldn't count learning time as paid time. Did I answer your question, Julian?
Yeah, but the actual like 1 hour meetings on Sunday, do we put those down too, or?
Yeah, I would definitely put those down, and then I would just log time that you spent writing code that you actually use. And it may be that some of those Sunday sessions were just purely learning. I don't know, but it's fine if you put those Sunday hours as paid hours.
Okay.
Unless you think they were purely learning time. The logic behind not paying for learning time is different people will need different hours for learning. So it gets to be inconsistent when we pay some people to learn and other people already know that. So that's kind of the logic behind not paying for learning time.
It did on I think the job offer email you sent or something like that. It said it compensates for up to 8 hours of workshop training time and software learning time.
Yep. Okay.
Did that,
So
like,
we're
get updated or
expanding that to 10 hours now. Yeah.
Okay, but not including the software learning time?
Not including software learning time. 10 hours for training, and
All right.
not including learning a new language or learning a new platform.
So,
But
Julian,
to
just jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Brent.
I was gonna say I didn't see the offer letter you were sent, but just hearing it discussed makes me think that, and John, clarify this if I'm off. When it says up to 8 hours of training and software learning time, I'm assuming that may have been in the context of the summer camps, and like if you had to work with Scratch or PowerPoint or something for the first time, is that what you meant by software, John, in that definition, or?
Well, no, it's written to both developers and TAs.
I see.
So I think Julian's question is appropriate, and we should try to find a compromise that is fair for everyone. So we're looking for your feedback here. Julian, if you want to propose something, we'll consider changing our policy.
I have a suggestion off the top of my head, and then if Julian, you have something, I'll definitely throw that in there. With learning time, I can almost, what I would imagine being like a worthwhile, because people need incentive sometimes, and sometimes it's just the experience of learning a new skill. But also, like if they log the learning time, $0 an hour, but put the number of hours, perhaps when the applications are complete, and if they're used to get to the next stage of business, they can get some sort of bonus or something based on the hours they spent, like relative to the hours. It's basically compensate them for some rate of learning. But that would, so basically it wouldn't hurt our cash flow now where we're in the growth, trying to grow. But once we get to the finish goal, it's almost like investing in a stock, and you may or may not get that money back depending on what happens with the business. But it adds incentive to the game.
Crashed for like a few minutes there. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. In short, I was basically suggesting that learning time, as John said, gets documented at 0 and has the hour amount next to it. But rather than leaving it uncompensated and just using it for data purposes, maybe if we reach certain business goals, we can go back and compensate that at some set rate per hour.
Okay.
You know, assuming that we finish the application gets used, and we wind up, you know, getting further financing because of
I
it.
like that concept a lot.
You know.
That is that there's an incentive to reach our business goals in the form of a bonus for extra hours invested. But I'm cautious about setting a policy that will pay for learning hours, because some people will need more learning hours than others.
Well, you could cap it. You could say, you know, up to,
Yeah.
you know, learn hours up to like 40 hours, one work week. You know, if you spend one work week learning over the period of a year, and that is used to, you know, generate millions, that, you know, but I see your caution, because if someone spent like a month or 2 months, and then that could really be open-ended.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
Julian,
that was the impression I was under for a bit, that it was like a limited amount of hours, but that software learning time would be compensated. But if the meetings are getting compensated every week, it basically evens out for me, so it's no skin off my bones.
Okay. All right. Unless you want to talk about this more, anyone, let's move on. We can deal with it offline in emails. If you have any objections to our policy, don't be shy about telling us, and we'll do our best to work with you to modify our policies so they work for everyone. Okay. D, E, and F are fairly straightforward. Let me step to our website architecture, point number 3. So you're going to need to find content on our website, and basically I can tell you that we have 30 projects. We have about 100 Build It blocks or modules that enabled kids to build those projects quickly. We have Invention Universe, and then we have our network of TAs. How that translates to the website is, let me go to Build It Yourself. So the way the website is organized right now, we want to rebuild this website as soon as possible, but it is what it is right now. The top part is for kids. Everything above this line here is designed for kids. Everything down here is designed for customers, partners, or our team. So Invention Universe is here, Build It Blocks is here, and then our missions are here, projects are here. And in Projectware, you've all looked at Projectware. That's our training materials. Brent's going to update that because we realized there were some old materials there. And then all of our lessons are here. So this is the difference between lessons and missions. Missions is sets of materials for each project. These lessons are cross projects. In other words, some of these lessons are used for every project, and other lessons or PowerPoints are used for just a few projects. So you'll generally go here for our PowerPoints that are tricks that we'll teach kids to build their projects, and then we'll generally go to the missions page to find out PowerPoints that are specific to particular projects. Does that make sense, how this is organized? Great. Thank you, Brent. Our missions fall into 3 different categories. Contraptions, which are, contraptions, basically. Rube Goldberg machines. And computer programming is software, 3D graphics, Scratch. And then robots are, the definition of robots, they have sensors, a controller, and then output devices. Contraptions are like flying machines or catapults, cooking course, could be under contraptions. Make sense? how we organize our content?
Sounds about right.
Okay, good, good, good. All right.
If you ever have a suggestion, we welcome that. So if you see something that you think's miscategorized or something, we'll look into it.
Okay, great. Sisha, and Brent, moving on to Intro to PowerPoint Lab Book. Brent, do you like to show how we would introduce PowerPoint to kids to create their lab book? You can share your
Sure.
screen. I'll stop sharing.
Just an intro to lab book. Let's
just make a cover to your lab book, and then we'll show. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, Brent. Let me show an example of a lab book first, and then
Sure.
you can go in to show how we build it in point 5. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to go to from our home page, or really any page. At the bottom are lessons, and then here's an example of a PowerPoint lab book. So this is the cover of your lab book, and Brent's going to show you how we guide kids to use PowerPoint to make something like that. A lab book should have documented as quickly as possible the problem and the mission for each project. And then it should have research. Go to Google and find images or of solutions to the problem. Don't reinvent the wheel we were talking about earlier. A lab book should contain this summary of the importance of presenting your ideas. And then a lab book should have problem-solving tricks. So every project should have a problem and mission, should have a page on research. Every project that kids do should have this page documented, the importance of presenting your ideas. And every project should have documented 5 problem-solving tricks. And then the other pages are specific to particular projects. When we use woodworking tools, we'll document this. When we use gear trains, we'll document, or modular construction. Many projects, we focus on modular construction and choose and use tricks, collecting junk, measures of success, why use a gear train. So a lab book could have 3 or 4 of these depending on the project, but a lab book will have a cover, a problem mission, research, presenting ideas, and problem-solving tricks. Every lab book should have those 5 pages. Okay, and that's because we sell to parents. We're going to teach your kids to solve problems, and we're going to teach your kids that presenting your ideas is just as important as building your ideas. That's an important part of our sales pitch. Okay, Brent, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you can show how we teach kids to use PowerPoint to create their own lab book. As you're setting that up, Brent, I can tell you that very often kids will end up being better PowerPoint users than their parents. And when parents see their kids using PowerPoint the way we teach them to use it, they will often say, where do I sign the check? My kid knows how to use PowerPoint better than I do, and I know that every day I use PowerPoint in my job.
And
okay,
one
Brent.
thing to remember too with the parents is anytime you're talking business, you have to think about age brackets, target audience. And I know a lot of people, that I've seen teach Build It Yourself, sometimes like, well, why does PowerPoint matter so much? There's Google Docs, there's Inkscape, there's this, there's that. There's a slideshow tool, I can use this builder. The benefit, the reason why it matters is the age bracket and the professions a lot of these parents are within. You use PowerPoint's presentations, and they came from a generation where Microsoft Office was the only office software you used. So it's like part of their daily life, and it makes them think about work, and it makes them think that their kids will do well in work, have a good career. So it's, just to kind of drive that home.
Right.
Okay, so the first thing you do when you open PowerPoint is we go to New Slide, and we choose blank. And what we explain to kids that PowerPoint thinks you're stupid. It tells you what to do. But at Build It Yourself, we like to do things the way cool way, and we want to build it ourselves. So, not new. Sorry about that. I meant to go to layout, blank. And the reason we do layout and not new slide is because if we don't choose layout, every time we add a new slide, it's going to have text, and we want each slide to be blank. So that's why we specify layout. From here, we explain that every single document, every single book, anything has to have a title. Think about your favorite book as a big title, right? So the title of this is Lab Book. So we go to Insert, and we choose Word Art. And then you find something you really like, and then type in Lab Book. A trick that makes it really easy to center this is to stretch the box using these little squares over to the left and the right. And when you center the text, it's guaranteed to be perfectly centered. And then we want to go to Insert and choose Text Box, draw a box below, and you write your first names only. The reason we do first names only is we post this online, and it's a safety thing. Again, you can drag it to the left and the right side, and then choose to center the text. Depending on the speed of the class and how long you want to spend on it, you can suggest making the title bigger, more appealing. And then we tell them that depending on what project, let's assume we're doing 3D rockets, because I like 3D. You go to Google, and you search for something like whatever is relevant to the project. If it's game design, maybe you suggest their favorite game character and so forth. Find something that they think is amazing. It could even be funny.
But relevant to the project. That
Exactly.
will make people see, when they see the lab book, they'll say, wow, there must be something really cool in this lab book. I want to look into it further. So what we've done here is teach kids how to use Word Art, the text box, and insert, search for images in Google and insert them into PowerPoint. So, you know, we're gradually teaching kids useful technology tools in the process of building their lab book. And then, Brent, can you just go through the saving exercise and file naming convention to the point that we're teaching kids to use technology the way professionals use technology?
Sure.
We're very, very particular about how kids name their files. We're particular about how developers on our team name their files. We try to pass that on to kids. If you don't name your file properly, we're not going to be able to find it.
The best thing to do when you save it is reference the intro slideshow, because it specifies, it's hard to remember which order, you know, school year, student name, so forth. So under the lessons, you would likely already have this downloaded to the teacher computer anyways. Within this PowerPoint, we show exactly how we want to save. So let me just change the view to normal. Okay.
This is a PowerPoint we're going to review in detail later on, but
okay, so let's see. I think it's okay, this one. So the school name, the date, and by date we mean this should be the first day of the workshop, so that should always be the first day of the workshop. The first names only, and then description would be lab book. So even though this is for HTML, it's still relevant. And this will help you remember. So go to File, Save As, tell them to navigate somewhere. Maybe, you know, depending on the school, maybe there's a DIY folder, maybe there's a desktop folder. We'll let you know if there's anything specific. If not, default to Documents. And then, oh, go ahead, John.
Excuse me, let me interrupt a second. This is great, Brent. There's a very important reason why we're so careful about file names. At the end of the summer, we're going to have 200 lab books, or maybe 100 lab books. And so we want to be able to access those lab books, so when parents ask us for their kids' lab books, we can easily find it. And this hierarchical name naming convention allows us this will make the files sort by themselves, so we can easily search for them. We use no uppercase because when we put files online, we have the issue of some operating systems recognize upper lowercase and others don't. We'll talk about this later. But so our general naming convention is hierarchical descriptive file names, no uppercases, and use dashes between words. So we're really, really fussy about this, and we want to pass that on to kids to use this file naming convention. Make sense? Anyone have any suggestions for how we teach PowerPoint, and in particular our rigor about naming files appropriately?
I have a survival tip for everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
You're gonna have that one team that inspires other teams to do something like this, and then they're gonna do something, you know, really messy, and then they're gonna change, like, oh, I really like green, and they're gonna go over here and they're gonna make something green and say green on green looks wonderful. And once you start having this happen, it can be contagious. So you know, from the lab book cover specifically, you can see if you're gonna have a problem with design. And if this happens, you don't have to call anybody out on it. A really passive way to fix this is when you go to the next slide and we say document the problem mission, do it in front of the class and mess up on purpose. Do purple. And then as you're doing this, then insert purple text and put mission. And then put black font and start typing. And then ask them what they think. And kids love to correct you. And if no one corrects you, which happens about 100% of the time, say, well, can you read this from a distance? Does this look good? And then someone will say no and say, how can I make this better? Change the background. To what? Color. What color? You know, maybe they'll say orange, and orange and purple are good enough as a contrast. You can read the black. We wanted to have them keep it clean. Ideally, simpler is better, but we still want them to have creativity, so we don't want to over dictate. But just reel them back in if you see them going into what looks like a 1990s Comic Sans, like, I don't know, like, you know, the old style where like the original websites from like early 90s, where how everything looked colorful and flashing, you couldn't see anything, and there was like marquees scrolling across the screen. Bring them back from it early on in the week. Make sure they understand. And the present an idea slides, if you have to initiate it early, which helps them with design, that might be useful. John, anything
Great.
to add to that suggestion?
Yeah, I'm going to pass the ball to Sisha shortly because I love the way Sisha says make it simple. So I think a key measure of success is, can you read your project in less than a second? Can you understand what your project, your lab book or the solution to your project, can you understand it in less than a second if you're browsing the internet or you're walking along the street and you see the project in the window? You should be able to see it from a distance and recognize what it is very, very quickly. That's a measure of success. And you're right, Brent, kids will always want to make it more complicated, and then very soon it will be contagious and everyone will have stuff that is just confusing, can't be read. So you have to be careful to reel kids in and tell them less is more.
Right. My suggestion is don't bring up backgrounds until you see someone change it, because you're asking them to change it if you mention it. But as soon as you see it go wrong, intervene, because there's plenty of times no one makes a messy PowerPoint, but there are also plenty of times it does happen. So it's really about being fluid as a workshop leader. It's a little hard if it's your first year doing this, but as you go through the weeks, you'll see different techniques you can use.
Great. Okay, Sisha, you'd like to add anything to keeping it simple? Keep it simple, stupid. What's the KISS philosophy?
Yeah, just like the Apple advertisement, you can see it's really simple, and yeah, we know that. Yeah,
I love
it's
Apple. Yeah, Apple is a good measure of success. A lot of white space and one focus point. You see it in almost all of their products, advertisements, and stores. The Apple brand is a model for build it yourself.
I agree. I agree.
Okay. DJ, since you're the artist in the group here, any comments on design philosophy or how we coax kids, how we encourage kids to create readable designs, memorable designs? What were you taught in art school about successful design strategy?
Well, actually, I've never learned design like in a class set. But for me, I always prefer the simple design. And I really agree with everyone just said, just to tell them, reel them in about the background and the text color.
Great, great. Yilin, I know you're one of your passions is art as well. Any thoughts on trying to inspire kids to make thoughtful, effective designs, whether it's a lab book or a product design or a user interface?
Yes, because the topic of our lab book will be like engineering projects. The kids might have a lot of things on their mind trying to explain, which may lead them to like put a lot of text on like one slide, which can be kind of unreadable. And I think we should like remind them that we should break points into like more slides instead of putting everything on one single slide.
Great, good point. Very good point. I remember once being taught at General Electric that you should never have more than 5 points on a slide. And in fact, even if you have 5 points on slide, you want to try to make build sequences so that the audience is just focusing on one point at a time. But to your point, Yilin, get rid of multiple text or long paragraph text. Make it bulleted and keep under 5 points, and whenever you can, try to get your listener to focus on 1 point at a time. Don't let your listener read point 5 when you're talking about point 1. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'd be helpful to just put 2 colors on the screen and ask the kids that these 2 colors looks good together.
Sure. We do an exercise like that when we teach graphic design.
Okay.
How colors work against each other. It's a great exercise and a basic art school exercise. So if you like to, you guys should feel free to introduce your own experiences in our classes. We don't want you to memorize an elevator pitch. We basically don't want you to memorize nothing or anything. We want you to feel freedom and license to add your own perspective into the teaching process. Okay. So the assignment for this morning was to create an elevator pitch and send it to Sisha, Brent, and me. And the second assignment is to create your own PowerPoint lab book in a way that is something that would inspire kids. So at the moment, if you could just put make your lab book cover and just lab book cover. And then in the next sessions, we'll start to talk about the problem, mission, research, presenting ideas, and problem solving tricks. So just start a PowerPoint lab book, name it appropriately, and make the cover. 2 assignments for tomorrow. Sisha, Brent, anything else we should cover today?
I think we're good. So Brent, Do you
Brent,
have anything?
anything else? We can adjourn.
I'm in agreement. I think everything's good. Let's just double check the agenda, make sure we didn't miss anything. I think we covered everything.
Okay, great. All right, guys, don't feel shy about sending us emails. We're particularly interested to get your feedback on what's working and what can we do better.
We just send the mission statement to you guys.
Yeah, send the mission statement and your lab book cover to Sisha, Brent, and me. And we may put, examples up on the screen for others to see in future workshops. I generally like to start up these workshops or training sessions with, a problem, mission, goal. So we all focus on what we're trying to do. And elevator pitches and the start of your lab book are sort of big picture issues. Okay, guys, thanks for your time today. To be continued tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I understand some of you, have commitments this week. We're archiving all of this, so it will be posted online if you have to miss a session. All right, Yilin, thanks for joining. Julian, DJ, see you tomorrow, same time, same station.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. See you
Great.
tomorrow.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Sisha and Brent, do you have a few minutes to stay online?
Sure.
Feedback on how the training went today? Sorry, I had to skip out on that second part of the first session.
It's all right. The feedback, I think we are doing good today.
Okay.
And the thing is, maybe they are still a little bit confused about the HR manual stuff. But I think Brent will be follow up all the stuff, so it's okay.
Okay. Are they confused about the forms, the schedule, or the HR manual? That's what we presented today, right? Forms you need to fill out, your summer schedule, and the HR manual. Okay. There's still a little confusion about that, you think?
I think it's all right because we are going to follow up all the forms.
Yeah.
And I send them the forms by email when we are meeting together. So I think it's all right.
Okay. Good.
So
all right.
Okay.
Sisha, are you free to meet at 1 o'clock today? Brent, I know is going to be busy.
Yes.
Can we go over the agenda for tomorrow at 1 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay. Great. All right, Brent, unless there's anything else, we'll adjourn. Thanks for your good work and your good preparation.
You're welcome. That's the one thing I think I need to do better for tomorrow is the preparation. That projectware page, I really think I should have reviewed first, just so I knew if there was any inconsistencies.
Okay.
So before we get to when you send out the agenda for tomorrow to me, I'll make sure I check everything out.
Okay.
So it's a little smoother.
Great. And maybe tomorrow you can mention, well, these things have changed on the projectware page.
Yes.
Good. Okay. It'd be great if you could update the projectware page. All right, Brent, we may call you this afternoon if there's anything we need to post for either CFE or training for tomorrow.
Okay. And I'm going to send the meeting notes to you guys.
Okay, good. All right, Sisha, see you at 1 o'clock. Brent may talk later.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.